Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we'll be showing you how to repair your appliance. Remember, anytime you work on an appliance, make sure it's unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. Also make sure you turn off your hot and cold water supplies. In this video we're going to show you how to change out the Samsung washer rear tub seal. It's going to be a very easy repair and it should only take a few minutes to show you how to do it. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can click on the link below or get it at AppliancePartsPros.com. When you open up the package, you're going to get the new rear tub seal. The rear tub seal is located in the back half of the outer tub. The main reason to be changing it out is if it's gone bad and you're getting water leaking out of the back of the tub. Before we take the machine apart, we have to remove the 3 screws along the bottom and disconnect the drain hose from its little holder. Remember, the machine is heavy, so if you need to get somebody to help you, make sure you do. But we're going to tilt the washer back and put a block of wood underneath it to support it. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to remove the 3 screws. Now that we have the screws out, we can remove the wooden block. Make sure you get somebody to help you if you need to. Anytime you're changing either the pump motors or the tub to pump hose or the tub itself, you want to drain as much water out of that so when you're changing the part, you don't get water all over the place. All you have to do is press down on this release lever and open the door. Then get something to catch the water in, and then you can reach inside and pull the drain hose off. To get the drain cap off, all you have to do is pull it out. And then make sure you lower it down into the bowl so you catch any water. Once you have most of it drained out, you can lift it back up and put the drain cap in. You can just close the door. In order to get to the part, we have to take off the top of the washer. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to remove the screws. Now that we have the screws out, we can take the top off. All you have to do is pull it back about an inch or so, far enough so these locking tabs come out, and then you can lift it off and set it aside. With the top out of the way, we can remove the detergent drawer. All you have to do is pull it out and press this little button right here to release it. Once you have it released, you can pull the drawer out and set it aside. Now that we have the detergent drawer out of the way, we can use our Phillips screwdriver to remove these 2 screws so we can push the whole dispenser back. With the screws out, we can push this back so it clears the opening. Now we can take off the control panel. There's a couple tabs along the top, so all you have to do is kind of lift up on the plastic and pull towards the front of the washer. Once you have them released, you can rotate the panel forward so we can disconnect the 2 wiring harnesses. To disconnect the wiring harnesses, all you have to do is press on the tab to release them and pull them apart. With the wiring harnesses disconnected, we can pull the console off. With the control panel out of the way, we can open up the washer door so we can remove the screws that hold the door switch and lock assembly in. We're going to use a Phillips screwdriver and remove all 3. Now that we have the door switch unmounted, we can take the outer spring clamp out. There's usually a spring down at 6 o'clock. We're going to take a small flathead screwdriver and carefully get underneath it. Once we have it pried out, we're going to go counterclockwise and take the clamp off the seal. With the clamp off the door boot seal, we're going to pull it out of its channel and kind of get it off the front panel. Now we can close the door and remove these 4 screws that hold the top of the panel in. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to take them out. Now that we have the screws out, we're going to open up the door again, and we have to lift up the front panel to get it off these 2 tabs right here. To get the front panel off, we're going to lift it up just a little bit. So we see these the white panel come up over the tabs. Once you have it released, you want to be careful to not let it drop because the door wants to pull it down. We have to reach in and release these hoses out of these clips right here. There's one here and there's one at the bottom. All you have to do is pull it out carefully. Sometimes the whole tab will come right off. That's okay, you can just leave it on there. And then we have to lower it down a little bit more so we can pull that drain hose out that we took out of its mounting clip. With the hoses out of the way, we can lift the front panel off the 3 brackets on the bottom. Once you have it released, you can set it aside. With the front panel out of the way, we have access to the hoses that go to the door boot seal. To remove the clamp, all you have to do is grab it with the pliers and compress it and move it up the hose. Once you have it out of the way, we can pull the hose off the fitting. Sometimes they can get on there a little tight, so you can use a small screwdriver to help break them free. Now we can do the other one. This clamp, all you have to do is move it up with your hand. All you have to do is compress it together and slide it up the hose. Then we can do the same thing, take a small screwdriver and pop the hose off. Last one we're going to take off is the one that comes down from the soap dispenser. This one we don't have to take the clamp off. All we have to do is pull the fitting out. Now we can take the weights off the front of the washer tub. We're going to swing this fitting out of the way so it's not blocking the weight. And then we're going to use a 13mm socket with a ratchet and go around and take out all 6 bolts so we can pull off both weights. The middle bolt that we have to take out to get the weight out is covered by this panel right here. So if you have somebody to help you, they can push down so you can have access to it. If you don't have anybody to help you, you can step on the lower weight, but make sure you don't step on the inner tub or the door boot seal because you might damage them. So you can just put a little weight right there and then we can take the bolt out. Once you have that one out, you can let go with your foot and take out the last bolt. Now that you have all 3 bolts off the upper weight, we can carefully reach down and pull it off the drum. Once you have it out, you can set it aside. We can take the lower one off the same way. Once you have the 3 bolts out, you can pull the weight off and set it aside. Before we go down to the bottom of the tub and take off all the hoses, we're going to take the door switch and swing it out of the way. We're not going to disconnect everything from it, but we're just going to get it onto the side of the machine and kind of tape it out of the way. That way we don't have to disconnect all the wires from it and it'll stay out of the way while we're working on the machine. Now we can remove everything from the bottom of the tub. First thing we're going to do is reach in and remove this big drain hose off the center of the tub. It's got a 10mm socket on the back side, so we have to reach around and take it out. But we're also going to put a towel down first because we're going to, even though we drained the water out through the drain hose earlier, we're still going to get some water that comes out. We're going to use our 10mm socket to reach around the back side of it and take the clamp off. They put the screw head on the back side, so we're going to have to do it by reaching underneath. Once you have it loose, you can just turn it by hand. Once you have the clamp loose enough, you can reach in and pull the hose off the bottom of the tub. Now we can take off these other 2 hoses off the pump housing assembly. This one's just a squeeze clamp. You can open it with your fingers and move it up. And once you have it removed, you can pull the hose off. Then we can use our pliers to move up the clamp that holds the tub to pump hose onto the pump housing. All you have to do is compress it and slide it up the hose. Once you have the clamp moved up, we can pull it off the housing. All right, next we're going to take off this fitting right here because we're going to have to set the tub down when we're taking it out. We don't want to snap this off. So we're going to take these two Phillips screws out and pull this assembly with the two hoses out. With the screws out, we can carefully pull down on the fitting and pull it out. If you want, you can take the little rubber seal off so you don't lose it or damage it somehow. Now we can take the wires off the heater element. There's 3 wires. We got black on the left, red on the right, and the green ground in the middle. All you have to do is pull the terminals off. Sometimes they're on there a little tight, so if you have to use a screwdriver to help yourself, you can use it. Once you have those off, we can use our small flathead screwdriver to release this tab so we can take it off. And then you can just put this wire harness down in the bottom of the machine so it doesn't get stepped on or damaged. Then we can remove this clamp. It's just a little squeeze clamp. We're gonna compress it and move it up the hose. It's on there a little tight. So you gotta use a screwdriver on the back side to help lift it up, you can. Then we can use the same screwdriver to help pop the hose off. And then we can use a Phillips screwdriver to remove this screw so we can take the whole assembly out. Once you have the screw out, we can pull the plastic fitting out and the tub to pump hose. Now we can take off the air pressure hose. It goes from the fitting we just took off up to the water level switch. We have to pull it out of this channel right here. And then on the upper fitting, it's held in by a wire tie. So we have to get that out of there and untwist it. Once you have it untwisted, pull the hose out and give the ties a couple turns. We don't want to lose them. We got to reuse them. Once you have the twist tie wrapped together so you don't lose it, we can lift the air pressure hose out so it's out of the way. Now that we have all the hoses off the bottom of the tub, most of the water should be drained out, so you want to grab all your wet towels and take them out. Now that we have the pressure hose secure, we can remove the other hoses from the top of the tub. On the top of the washer, we only have to remove 2 hoses. They're both held on with squeeze clamps. So all we have to do is compress the clamp and move it up the hose so we can pull the hose off the tub. And you can put it up here underneath the water valves just to get it out of the way. And then we want to remove this white piece so when we take the tub out, we don't lose it. Then we can remove the hose that connects the tub and the dispenser housing together. Same as the other one, all we have to do is squeeze it and move it up the hose. Once you have the clamp moved up, we can pull the hose off. With the hose disconnected from the bottom, we can take the whole dispenser housing and just kind of lift it up out of the way and set it over the side of the machine. With the dispenser out of the way, we can go around to the back of the machine and take the access panel off. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to take out the screws. With the screws out, we can remove the access panel. You're going to lift up on it and then pull the bottom out. Once you have it out, you can set it aside. Now that we have the access panel off, we can take the motor off. First thing we have to do is take off this big 19mm bolt. In order to do that, we're going to stick a screwdriver into one of these holes. Now you want to make sure you only do it through these holes. If you do it through any of these other holes, you're going to damage the stator that's on the inside. So you want to take a screwdriver and you'll notice that it doesn't go in. There's actually 3 notches in the hub. So you can slowly turn it and you'll feel the notches as you get to them. The screwdriver will go up. So they're usually in this position right here, and that'll allow you to, with the screwdriver at a little bit of an angle, not straight in, it'll allow you to push it back, and then you can lock the rotor against that when you loosen and tighten the bolt. Once you have it held in place, then we can grab our 19mm socket and ratchet and take out the bolt. It's going to be pretty tight, but once you break it free, it should come out pretty easy. With the bolt out of the way, we can pull the rotor assembly off and set it aside. Once you have the rotor off, you can see the 3 little cutouts where the screwdriver would go in. Now that we have the rotor out of the way, we can disconnect the wire harnesses. First one we're going to take off is this one. We have to press in on the 2 tabs. There's one on each side. And then we can take a small screwdriver and pop it out because it's in there kind of tight. Once you have it pulled out, you can just swing the wire harness out of the way. And then we can take off the other one. It also has a locking tab that you can just press and release, so you can pull it out. And same with this wire harness. Once you have it off, you can just swing it out of the way. Now we can take off the 6 bolts that hold the stator in. We're going to take them off with a 10mm socket and an extension. Now that you have the bolts out, we can take the stator off. Now that we have the stator out of the way, we can disconnect the wire harness that goes to the water temperature sensor. All you have to do is pull it out of this white bracket and press the release lever and pull it apart. Now that we have the water temperature sensor disconnected, we can take off the 2 screws. One of them that holds this plastic bracket on, and the other one is the ground screw. With the screws removed, we can lift the plastic bracket off. All you have to do is pull it out, and you can set the wiring harness aside. Now that we have pretty much everything disconnected from the tub, we're going to remove the shock absorbers. All we have to do is remove them from the tub and push them out of the way. We're going to use a 13mm socket with a short extension to get in here and take them out. Once you have the bolt unscrewed all the way, if it won't come out and you can't grab it with your hands, you may have to pop it out with a screwdriver so you can pull it out easier. Once you have the bolt out, you can reach in and grab the shock, and you might have to twist it a little bit to get it to break free or shake the tub around. But once you have it free, you can push it all the way down to compress it, and then you can push it against the side wall so it's out of the way. Once you have this one done, we can go around and do the other 3. Now that we have the shock absorbers off, the last thing we have to do is remove the suspension springs. There's one located on each side of the tub on the top. There's a little locking tab that we have to remove with a small flathead screwdriver, and then we can lift the springs out so we can remove the tub. To get the springs out, we're going to release this little locking cover with a small flathead screwdriver. All you got to do is pop it out like that. Once you have the little cover out of the way, we can carefully reach in and grab the spring, and we're going to lift it out of its little holder. Once you have it out of its holder, you want to carefully let it down so it doesn't bang against anything. You don't want to break anything down below. Then once you have it released, we're going to take the spring off the tub and put it back in the holder so it's there when we put it back in. Now we can do the spring on the other side. There's this wiring harness cover here. It's not really in the way. You can get behind it and pop it out, but if you want to move it out of the way, there's a little retainer clip right here that we have to release, and just one is usually good enough, and that'll give you enough room to get in there if you think it's too tight. Once you have that out of the way, we can pop this off just like we did the other side, and then lift the spring out. And sometimes with the whole tub hanging off of it, it makes it hard to pull out. So we're going to use this little handle that they put on here to take some of the weight off the tub so we can lift it out of the retainer. Once you have the spring out of the retainer, you want to carefully set it down so you don't damage anything on the bottom of the washer. Once you have it rested on the bottom of the machine, you can take the spring off the tub and hook it back into the retainer. With the tub resting on the bottom of the machine, we have to carefully lift it out. Remember, it is heavy, so if you have somebody to help you, have them get on the other side. But we're going to grab it in the middle here and on the front and slowly walk it out to the floor. Once you have it halfway out, you can rest it on that front beam and then come around and lift it out. Now that we have the whole assembly out of the washer, we put it up on a couple boxes so the shaft doesn't dig into the ground. We're going to crack the tub in half, so we're going to take our 10mm socket and go around and take all the screws out. With all the screws out of the tub, we can split it in half. If yours is loose, all you have to do is pick it up. But if yours has been on there for a while, you may have to stick a small screwdriver in here and help pop it apart. But either way, once you do that, you should be able to just lift it off and set it aside. Now that we have the top of the tub off, we can lift the inner tub out. All you have to do is grab it and lift it up. Now that we have the inner tub out of the way, we have access to the rear tub seal. All it is pressed into this recess, so we're going to take a big flathead screwdriver and get underneath it and pry it out. Just be careful as you go around that you don't damage the lip of the tub. Once you have it popped out, you can pull it out of the tub. Here's the old rear tub seal next to the new one. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can get it at appliancepartspros.com. Before we put the new rear tub seal in, you want to take a look at your bearings. If you're changing the seal because they were leaking, you want to make sure that they're not bad. So make sure that they spin freely and aren't jammed up. Also, we want to make sure we clean this groove out. This is where the new seal is going to sit, and we don't want any dirt or foreign objects in there that will cause it to leak. The new rear tub seal does come pre-greased from the manufacturer, so you shouldn't have to add anything to it. In order to put it in, we're going to set it down nice and square into the opening and push it down into place. You're only going to be able to push it so far, but make sure you keep it square so it goes down evenly. Once you have it started, we're going to use a piece of wood and a little hammer to tap it down even with the tub surface, nice and even so you get a good seal. You want to go back and forth and side to side so it seats properly. Once you have the rear tub seal tapped all the way down so it's even with the lip of the tub all the way around, we can put the tub back together. Before we put the inner tub back in, we have to look at a few things. Since we have it apart, you want to make sure that the spider arm is not corroded or weak looking. If it is super corroded, you may want to change it just because it's going to fail shortly anyways if you think it's that bad. The other thing you have to look at very carefully is this surface right here has to be pretty smooth. If your seal was leaking for a while, this could be corroded. This is where the seal actually sits. So if it's corroded and it's a rough surface, you may have to change the spider also, because putting this old corroded thing into a new seal may not fix the problem. So make sure you check those two things before you put the inner tub back in. The other thing is as you lower it down, you want to make sure you set it down slowly so as the water seal hits this lip, it doesn't get damaged in any way. So once you're sure everything is okay and you're going to get a good seal on this, we can carefully lower the inner tub in. Make sure you look in there and make sure it goes straight down into the hole and you don't jam up the seal. Once you feel it drop down that last ½ inch and go over that seal seat surface, you can give it a spin to make sure it spins freely, and then we can put the rest of the tub back together. Whether you're splitting the tub in half to change the spider or the rear tub seal, you want to make sure that you look at this tub seal and make sure it's in good condition. If it looks like it needs to be changed, make sure you order one and replace it. Now that we have the inner tub in, we can put the front half of the outer tub on. The main thing you want to do when you're lowering this down, you want to make sure the heating element goes into the bracket so it's properly positioned between the two tubs. Once you have it lowered in place, you can make sure the screw holes are lined up, and then we can go around and put all the screws in. To put the tub back together, we're going to first go around and just set all the screws in place since there's so many of them, and then we're going to go around with our 10mm socket and tighten them all down. Now that we have all the screws installed, we can put the tub assembly back into the machine. To get the tub assembly back in the machine, it's basically the same way you took it out. You want to be very careful that you don't hit the pumps or the computer board in the back. If you have to rest it, make sure you rest it on this beam right here, and it's best to get somebody to help you. Once you have it centered in the machine, so it's lined up with the support springs, you can set it down and then we can put the springs back on. We're going to take it off the frame and hook it into the tub. Remember, the tub is heavy, so get somebody to help you if you can. If you're lifting it by yourself, you can use the handle and the spring together and just lift it up and hang it on the frame. Once you have it in place, you can carefully let it rest so it doesn't hit anything again. Once you have this side in, remember we're going to put this little protective cap back in to lock the spring in. And if you took the wire harness off, we're going to snap it back into the frame. Now that we have the other side in, we can put this spring in. We're just going to take it out of its holder and rehook it through the tub and carefully lift it up and hook it back in so it's supported on both sides. Once you have it back in there, you can swing that little locking piece back in and snap it into place. Now that the tub is hanging on the springs, we can put the first shock absorber in. You may have to lift up the tub and pull it back a little bit so the shock absorber lines up. Once you have the shock absorber in the slot, you can put the bolt in. Once you have the shock absorber bolt installed, we can go around and do the other three. Now we can reinstall the wiring harness and the plastic holder. We want to put this little tab right here into the hole on the metal bracket. All you have to do is slide it up in there, and then you can rotate it down. Once you have it in place, we can use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screw in. Once you have the bracket held down, we can put the grounding screw in. Remember, it goes right here, so we got to make sure we put the ground wire on first and then screw it into the bracket. Now we can reconnect the water temperature sensor wire harness. All you have to do is grab both ends of the plugs and plug them together so they snap, lock, and get a good connection. Then we can push it back into this white bracket so it's held in place. Now we can put the stator back in the machine. There's 3 locating pins that have corresponding holes on the stator. So we're going to line those up and mount it in place. Once you have it on, hold it in place so it doesn't fall off. And then we can put a bolt in real quick and tighten it all the way down to hold it in place. Once you have a bolt in place to hold it down, we can use our 10mm socket to go around and put the rest of the bolts in. Now that we have the stator back in, we can plug the wire harnesses back in. Same as when we took them off. All you have to do is line them up in place and push them in so they lock on. Now that we have the stator in place, we can put the rotor on. All you have to do is line it up with the shaft so the splines go on. Once you have it lined up, you push it all the way on. And then we can put the bolt back in. But before we do, when you look at the threads, it looks like they had some sort of thread sealer in there. It wasn't red, so it came out because it came out pretty easy. So we're going to put a little bit of blue in here. So when we screw it down, it stays locked in. Once you have the thread lock on to the bolt, we can put it back into the shaft. Alright, same as when we took it out, we're going to put this screwdriver in through the hole so we can hold the tub in place while we turn the bolt. To tighten the bolt down, we're going to use our 19mm socket again. Now we can put on the rear access panel. All you have to do is line up the upper tabs and push the panel all the way up, and then push the bottom down and make sure the tabs are in their slots, and then lower the panel down so the screw holes line up, and we can use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screws back in. Now that we have the access panel installed on the back of the machine, we can reattach everything on the top. First thing we're going to do is pull the dispenser housing over and put it back in place so we can reattach the two hoses on the top of the tub. Before you put the dispenser all the way in, you want to stop right about here so we can reach down and reconnect the hose. To put the hose in, you want to line up this arrow. Once you have the arrows lined up, you can push the hose down. Make sure it bottoms out all the way. And then we can compress the clamp and move it down so it seals. Once you have the clamp on, we can put the housing back in its place. Next, we can put on the big vent hose on the top of the tub. The fitting is right here at the top. First, remember we have to put in that white plastic piece, and there's a little notch right here that has to line up with that tab. And then when we put the hose on, there's a little arrow right here that we have to line up with the notch on the hose when we push it on. All you have to do is line that notch up with that arrow and push it down into place. Make sure it bottoms out all the way. And then we can move our squeeze clamp down to make sure we get a good seal. Now that we have everything reconnected on the top, we can do everything on the front and the bottom. So we're going to grab that air pressure hose and route it down through the side. Remember, this little white piece protects it from the ties, so you want to make sure when you put the ties on that it's protected there. Once you have that in place, we can route the hose down through the channel and just press it in. There's nothing that holds it down here. And then we can leave it hang for a second while we put in the other fittings so we can connect it. Now we can mount the plastic fitting that the air pressure hose hooks up to. Remember, this hole right here goes on that pin, and then we can use the Phillips screwdriver to put the screw in. Once you have that in place, we can reconnect the air pressure hose. You want to make sure the part that's protected by the cloth goes through that little clip right there. But first we're going to put it down and move the clamp down. It's important that you make sure that that goes all the way down and the clamp is down and secure. You don't want to have an air leak and cause the tub to overfill. Once you have it in place, we can put it through the clip. Now that we have the fitting in place and the hose attached, we can put this wire harness protector on. All it does is snap on to the fitting. Make sure that this little pin goes into that hole, and then you can push it up into place. Once you have it secure, we can hook the wires back up to the heater. Remember, the red was on the right. You want to make sure you push these on and get a good connection. The green, the ground, was in the middle. And the black was on the left. Now we can hook up the tub to pump hose back up to the pump housing. You want to make sure when you slide it on that this notch right here is lined up with the tab. Once you have it slid on all the way, we can reach in with our pliers, and you want to move the clamp up in between these two lines so it gets a good seal. Now we're going to put the tub to pump hose onto the bottom of the tub. We're going to reach in and slide it up onto the fitting, making sure that the clamp is in place. There's a little notch in the side of the hose right here that has to line up with the tab on the side over here. Looks the same as this one. You just want to make sure when you push it up that that tab is in the right spot. Once you have the tab lined up right here, then you can move the clamp up and we can reach back in there with our 10 millimeter socket again and tighten it down. Now we can put this rubber seal back onto the tub fitting. It's a little oval seal. You want to make sure this little tab goes to the left side of the washer, just like when we took it off. And you have to push it up onto the fitting, making sure that it's not kinked and everything's on there good. so we get a good seal. Once you have it in place, we can put this plastic fitting back in and use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screws back in. Once you have the screws tightened down so you get a good seal, we can reconnect the hoses. Of course, this one we're going to reconnect in a little while to the door boot seal, but this one we can swing over and push back down onto the pump housing. We're going to make sure that this little tab right here is lined up with this notch, and then we can push it down into place and put our little squeeze clamp back down to seal it so we don't get any leaks. We have to get the door switch back inside, so we're going to take the tape off of it and swing it around into place so we can install it once the front panel is on. Before we put the weights back on, we have to put some more thread locker onto the bolts. When you took them off, you may have noticed they had some orangish red on there. It wasn't the red type that's locked on there completely because we got them out pretty easy. So we're just going to put some blue on it so when we put the bolts in, they don't come out. Now we can put the lower weight back on. We're going to carefully set it onto the two mounting pegs. Once you have them on, we can put the bolts back in to hold it in place. We're going to use our wrench with a 13mm socket to tighten them down. Now we can put the upper weight on. You have to set it onto these two locating pins. Remember, make sure you step on the lower weight and not the inner tub or the tub boot seal. And just press the tub down a little bit so we can get this weight up in here. Once you have it in place, we can put the screws back in and then use the 13mm socket to tighten them down. If you need more room to put the middle bolt in, remember to lift up the door boot seal and step on the weight so you don't damage anything. And you can press down on it while we get the bolt started. Now that we have the weights in place, we're going to put the hoses back on. We're going to put the dispenser hose on first. So we have to put the boot into this channel right here. So we're just going to carefully stretch it over. Now we're going to reconnect the hose that comes up from the left side of the tub and connects to the door boot seal. Remember, all you have to do is press it back into place. Once you have it in there, we can grab our pliers and move the clamp down. And then we'll do the middle one. All you have to do is press it in and squeeze the clamp to move it down. And then we can do the one on the right. And move the clamp down with the pliers. Now that we have all the hoses reconnected, we can put the washer back together. To put the front panel back on, all you have to do is carefully set it onto the 3 brackets. We can stick that drain hose back into the housing. And then we'll slowly lift up the panel and either reclip or remount this onto the front panel. Once you have the hoses in, we can carefully push the panel up into place and make sure these 2 locking tabs snap in. Once you have the front panel pushed into place, we can put the 4 screws back in. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to put those back in. Now that we have the front panel on the washer, we can open the door back up. And we have to reach inside the door boot seal and grab the door switch assembly and line it up so we can put the screws in. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screws in. As you're putting the first one in, you're going to have to reach inside and hold the switch in place. Now that we have the door switch mounted, we can put the door boot seal on. Remember, you have to put this lip right here, right in the channel. We have to go around the whole door and make sure it's in there properly. Once you go around and you're sure you have it in the channel, we can put the outer spring clamp back on. To put the clamp on, we're going to put the clamp down at 6 o'clock. Once you have the spring in there, we're going to hold it in place and then go around and put the spring clamp into the groove. Once you get over here to about 3 o'clock, it's going to be kind of hard to get on. We're going to hold it there and then grab the spring clamp with our locking pliers. And we want to pull out this way towards the side of the machine. If you pull out to the front, it's just going to pull the clamp right off. So just pull to the side and then put it into the channel. Once you have the spring clamp in place, we can close the door again so we can put the console on. To put the console back on, we have to line these locking tabs with these little holes. So when we put it up into place, they're lined up. So once you have it started, we're going to tilt it up a little bit, and then we're going to reconnect the harness wires. To reconnect the harness wires, all you have to do is match them up. There's 2 different sizes, so you can't mix them up. Just make sure you push them back together so they get a good connection and lock in place. With the wire harnesses connected, you want to carefully push the console up, making sure that the harnesses go through the hole, and then you can snap it into place onto this frame. Now we can put the detergent housing back into the opening. All you have to do is reach in and guide it forward so it comes out through the control panel. Once you have it in place and the screw holes lined up, we can use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screws back in. We can put the detergent drawer back in. All you have to do is line it up on its rails and push it back in so the tab locks. Once you have it in there, you can push it all the way in. To reinstall the washer top, we can set it down just like when we took it off, about 1 inch or so away from the tabs. Once you have them lined up, we can push it forward so it goes all the way in. Now that we have the top in place, we can use our Phillips screwdriver and put the screws back in. Now that we have everything else put back together on the washer, we can lift it up and use that wood block to support it so we can put the 3 screws in at the bottom. Remember to get somebody to help you if you need to, because the machine is heavy. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to put the 3 screws back in. Now that we have the screws in, we can take the block out. Make sure you get somebody to help you if you need to. We can open up this panel and put the drain hose back in its retainer clip. Once you have it in place, you can close the door. Now that we have the washer put back together, we can plug it back in, turn the water back on, and take it for a spin. Thanks for joining us for another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Check out our other repair videos on our site, Facebook, and YouTube.